Hi, it's Deacon Matthew Glover from Christ the King Catholic Church, coming to you for this final day of reflections for this week. This is Friday, July the 7th. It's Friday of the 13th week of Ordinary Time. And today, for my final reflection, I want to piggyback off more on these themes of light versus dark. Earlier this week, I reflected on the Feast of St. Thomas of the Apostle about this Caravaggio painting of Thomas sticking his finger into the side of Christ, and Caravaggio painting as if the light of Christ was illuminating the darkness. And in today's Gospel reading, which is from Matthew chapter 9, verses 9 through 13, it's about the calling of St. Matthew. And the calling of St. Matthew is also the focus of another hugely famous Caravaggio painting. This Caravaggio painting shows Matthew and other tax collectors sitting kind of in the back corner of this dark room. And then at the other side of this room, you see Jesus coming in. And Jesus is coming in, and all Jesus is doing is pointing. He's holding his finger out like this, and he's pointing at Matthew. And Matthew, at the same time, is pointing at himself like this. And he's like, me? Why are you pointing at me? Why would you call me? And they also have in this painting this amazing interplay between light and dark. It's the light of Christ coming into this dark space, starting to illuminate St. Matthew's his life. And so Matthew, as you all know, is a tax collector. And what that means is he is persona non grata amongst the Jews. All right? It's a Jewish town, but it's been occupied and it's run by the Roman Empire, and Matthew is working for the Romans to collect taxes from the Jews, his own people, on behalf of the Romans. And he's probably skimming some off the top too to make some money. So for those of you who aren't big fans of the IRS, just imagine that times 50 in terms of the kind of anger and frustration that the Jews would have had towards St. Matthew, one of their own, collecting tax money from them for an empire that was not even theirs, that they were conquered by. And so for Matthew, sitting in this, you can imagine kind of a dark customs post, he was an outcast amongst his own people. And then Jesus comes and simply says to him, "Follow me." And the scripture says Matthew did. Matthew got up and followed him. There was no elaborate dialogue. There was no big drama, no fuss. Jesus didn't talk to him for a long period of time and kind of schmooze him or give him a sales pitch. He just walked up to Matthew and said, "Follow me." But note this. Jesus goes where Matthew is, but he doesn't leave him there. Okay? Jesus later tells the objectors in the gospel reading, "Those who are well don't need a physician, but the sick do. I did not come to call the righteous, but sinners," because people were asking, how could you possibly call this guy to come and follow you? And that's Jesus' response. Once again, in today's gospel reading, we see Jesus calling someone out of a place of darkness, out of sickness, out of sin, and into the light. What Jesus says is into health, into righteousness. So today, maybe we could reflect on what parts of my life are sick still and in need of further healing. Ask Jesus, perhaps today, to come into those parts of your life. But don't forget, when Jesus comes and calls you out and says, "Follow me," or looks at those other little parts of your life that maybe you haven't fully turned over to him and says, "Follow me" in those parts of your life, Jesus will come and meet you where you're at, but he won't leave you there. He won't expect you to just stay there. He always calls us out. Not to give us more rules or to control us or to trap us. He calls us out to give us real freedom, true happiness, a more abundant life than the things of this world that really enslave and trap us could ever possibly give us. Jesus is our light and our freedom. God bless.